What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Talking Siege, the Rainbow Six podcast. Today, joining you is, of course, our usual hosts, myself, Devmarta, Skye and Cthulhu.
Sup?
And special guests today, we have two very successful content creators from YouTube. Welcome, Rogue-9 and Get Flanked.
Hey, what's up, guys?
I believe this is a bit of a face reveal for Rogue-9, so no doubt all of the viewers coming from his channel will be very happy.
There's a face under that beard? Where?
Yep, so, pretty typical format we're going to be going for today, just talking about kind of all things Rainbow Six. Obviously, we're going to be picking the brains of these two lovely content creators, because, that's a pretty special thing for us to be able to talk to. You guys both been going strong on YouTube for quite a while now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of how you got into Rainbow Six and and then YouTube and like how that grew into where you are now. And I'm going to start with Get Flanked.
Well, I've been doing YouTube for about 3 years. Started out in Call of Duty like pretty much every other YouTuber on the face of the earth. I did search and destroy videos. And I remember when I saw the E3 premiere or E3 reveal of Rainbow Six Siege, the game looked awesome. So I've been playing Rainbow since the beta, got into it really, really heavy on my channel on YouTube around Velvet Shell, and just been going strong for about the last year, or actually a little bit less, and enjoying the game, enjoying making content for it, and looking forward to the future.
And you play predominantly on PS4, is that right?
I play PS4 and PC. I probably play like 2 weeks on PC to every 1 week on PS4, something around in there.
I think that's really interesting. Most of the people we get on here are mainly from the PC community because, of course, the PC community has got most of the love in terms of the competitive scene, which then has kind of fostered the whole scene. But yeah, it's really good to get different perspectives, particularly from PS4, because I feel like when we do get a console perspective, it's Xbox because they were the ones that had a Pro League briefly. So, yeah. And Rogue, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your Rainbow Six / YouTube journey?
Yeah, for me, probably about two years ago now, I had time on my hands and just started doing YouTube because I realized sort of one day that what I was doing most days when I wasn't busy was either watching YouTube or playing video games. So I thought I'd combine the two and go with that. And in terms of serious content where it was more produced rather than just gameplay, Rainbow Six was probably the first serious game that I started out with. Again, starting out from the beta and then going on from there.
I'd say that that's probably one of the keys to your success in particular. I personally found your videos from your analysis ones where you would do these ridiculously rigorous tests. And that's kind of what you've been known for after that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I started. I enjoy that anyway. I enjoy spending my day in Excel, and went from there. And if people want to watch it, yeah, I'll keep doing that.
Does that come from like a stats background at uni or something like that, or is that just your passion?
Yeah, I mean, started at university. I studied both business administration and human psychology, and as part of the psychology degree, I did a lot of research methods and statistics. And then later on in my professional career, I worked for Microsoft as a market research analyst, and then later for a management consulting agency, also as an analyst. So I have that in my background.
I think you're more than overqualified to be the official Rainbow Six stat collector.
We're in good hands. Rainbow Six community is in good hands.
So moving on, talking about like Rainbow Six community in general, we've got this massive Six Invitational coming up. Now, the Rainbow Six competitive scene is quite a large factor, I would argue, in why the game has been so successful. Obviously, there's all these pillars and reasons why it's been such a good game regardless, but I feel like the competitive scene is one of the driving forces that means that coming into year 3 now, technically year 4 because the game actually came out a little bit before technically year 1 started, but like the game's still going, and we got the Six Invitational coming up. What's like kind of your guys' thoughts coming into that? Have you been following that?
Yeah, absolutely. I keep a close eye on the competitive scene, and I'm really excited. I know I'll personally be at the Invitational. I've been. Are you guys not going to be there?
In Australia, man, flights are way too expensive.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll be down your way, I'm sure, here in the next few seasons. So, but no, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I've been loving the competitive Pro League this season. It's been really exciting. I'm a little disappointed in how North America has performed this year. Elevate's the only team that's actually gone to LAN and gotten a single win this entire year. So I'm really excited to see what EG, that's Evil Geniuses, what Elevate and what Rogue do. And I can't wait, man. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I used to be more of a casual viewer, but getting into it more and more recently, and I'm also really excited to be going to the Invitational.
I'm going to ask that follow-up question because you guys are both going. Can you reveal if has Ubisoft had any input in that? Like, I know that they're flying out some people. Have you guys been flown out as content creators?
There's a lot of people going. There's a lot of people that have been invited.
Okay.
Yeah, I purchased my tickets a long time ago. Like as soon as the day that they released them, I purchased my tickets. So I've been going as a fan the entire time, and yeah, I'm just looking forward to like going and just watching the teams and just like I said, just being a fanboy. You know, like if I run into Canadian in the hallway or something, I'm gonna scream like a little girl. I might turn into a groupie over the weekend or something. I don't know.
I guess sort of moving forward, obviously we're now on the topic of the Six Invitational. How are you guys feeling about the Six Invitational?
Okay, well, I guess I'll answer that from like the perspective of the teams that I'm rooting for, which I do a series on my channel called The Pro and Potato where I interview a lot of the pros, and so I try to remain somewhat impartial, but I don't hide it from anybody. I'm a fan of North America. So as far as North America's chances and how I feel about that, I mean, Evil Geniuses, everything I'm hearing from those guys, they all are feeling really good about this. Elevate is a team that we haven't seen in a long time because they didn't qualify for Year 3 LAN, and with this kind of offseason leading up to Invitational, they're kind of like, I feel like they're under the radar, even though they're technically the team out of North America that's had the most success this year. So I feel really good about them, and I feel like Rogue is really, really hungry. And they didn't have as much success as they liked in the qualifier. They haven't had a lot of success formally as vertical at LAN. And I feel like they're, again, kind of under the radar and really hungry. But then you have to recognize Penta. I mean, Penta, with the addition of Shate, one of, if not the best player in the world, coming to what is already recognized as one of the best teams in the world. Holy cow. It's going to be exciting. I mean, I can't wait to see what goes on, but there's a lot of big storylines going into this.
When we had... Oh, yeah, go ahead, Rogue.
Yeah, from my perspective, I suppose, as I mentioned, I'm more of a casual fan of the Pro League, and for me, I'm just excited for it as an event, because it seems like... in terms of making it as grand as possible, this is certainly going to be one of the biggest things that Ubisoft have organized. I mean, I've seen some of the mock-ups of what the arena is going to look like and everything that Ubisoft are organizing in and around the event. I'm really excited just for the spectacle of it, in addition to the games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite a spectacle. Last time there was a LAN for Rainbow Six in Brazil, there was 1,000 people there. And oh my goodness, that would have been amazing. The vibe we had, who did we have on? It was Panari. Sorry, blanking. Sorry, Panari, if you're watching. We had Panari from ENCE, and obviously ENCE won the last LAN in Brazil, and he was talking about how the atmosphere is sitting on stage. They were in soundproof booths, and they could feel the clapping and the roaring of the crowd. And obviously the crowd wasn't on their side because they were up against Brazil for most of it. And obviously the Brazilians were a little bit biased, no doubt. So, I mean, like, going
they're quite
from
passionate.
Oh, yeah, passionate
They're
for
passionate.
sure.
That's the
Going from that into, like, in Montreal at the Invitational, 16 teams, like this, everyone's rooting. Everyone wants to be, I mean, CTM now, Evil Genius, is the only team who's technically been, world champion by winning the last Invitational. They've got something to prove here. Every region wants that title, and there's going to be so many people there. 360-degree view, like stadium. It's a fantastic move forward for Rainbow Six as an esport.
Yeah, I agree, and I really look forward to seeing that atmosphere. I know, like, the Brazil fans are insane. Like, they are insanely passionate, and I'd say one Brazil fan for every two every two of us North Americans. I'm sorry, I'm one of them, but as far as like the amount of noise they're going to produce, but you get me in there, you get a North American team up on stage, I'm going to make some noise. You best believe it.
Fair enough. Yeah. With moving on to kind of slowly transitioning while still being on the competitive kind of topic, what do you guys think would get the kind of casual players to first transition to kind of more of a rank to get into that kind of competitive mindset, and then get to the amateur league? Like, what do you think is kind of the requirement for that?
Like, what does the scene need?
Yeah, what does the scene need to get more people in?
That's an awesome question, and it's something that I care a lot about, because I think, and we've talked about this, Rogue and I have on previous podcasts that we've done together. I think the number one thing that's going to ensure a long lifespan for this game, I think this game can go on for 10 years or more if we can get the competitive aspect ingrained into that casual player. So your question's great. How do we do that? One of the ways that I do it on my channel is, like I said before, with the Pro and Potato. I think if the casual player is just exposed to Pro League in one form or another, that it'll be something that a lot of them are going to grasp onto and to respond well to. I think a lot of them just don't even necessarily know it. Like, I don't know these numbers for sure, but I would venture to say that somewhere between 60 and 70% of the player base is on console. Console isn't represented anymore on in the Pro League. But in speaking and playing on console myself, most console players are more than happy or are more than willing to watch the Pro League on PC. But I just think that it's maybe a little bit of a lack of exposure at this point. I personally challenge all content creators to make it a point to inject Pro League into their content more than we do. And I know that sometimes as a content creator, it can be tough to kind of step out of your comfort zone if that's not where you feel like, you know, that your audience wants to see. But I know personally, like me presenting it to my audience, everybody's responded really well, and it's some of my more popular videos, and it's definitely the content that I'm the most proud of, is, you know, talking with the Pro League players and introducing my audience to the Pro League format. So I think that's really it. I mean, as far as like tournaments and stuff like that, I mean, should we look at something to make the console aspect of the game a little bit more competitive and a little bit more recognized as a competitive aspect? I don't know. I don't think the numbers can justify it yet. When you get viewership into, you know, a couple 100,000, for example, CS:GO, they just finished their big major in Boston. They had 1.1 concurrent viewers. I think in Season 3, Rainbow Six had 100,000 peak concurrent viewers, somewhere around there. So we start getting that number up, we can start justifying a lot more different possibilities. But until then, I think you got to stay on PC, and you got to just try to expose as many people as possible with the competitive aspect.
One of the things I saw is really unfortunate when we had an Xbox Pro League, and then kind of the funding that ESL and Ubisoft putting into it, they said, okay, look, we're trying to stretch our funding a little bit too far over these things. So they dedicated it all into PC. And I think that they're one of the points that I've heard in an argument for that is that PC is more enjoyable to watch just because it's easier to aim on PC. And obviously the aiming, it's, you know, you get these nutty flicks that it's just so much more difficult to do using a joystick on console. And like, I mean, you can see the argument of them trying to put all their eggs into the basket of making PC Pro League as good as it can be, rather than kind of spreading it all out, having lesser prize pools, less teams who are going to be interested by stretching it across platforms. But I mean, that said, I think that amateur level leagues are something that's really important and unfortunately really underrepresented, particularly in NA. We've been working really hard in the ANZ region, Australia, New Zealand, to work on this. We have a company called Cybergamer, who are kind of a rival company to ESL, that we have a running ladder similar to the ladders that were for invitational qualifiers in most of the regions, and this ladder now has a $1,000 prize pool. Every week, CG also runs a tournament, a $120 tournament, and also we have the ESL Go Fours, and we're also working on some more projects coming up very soon. I feel like that's one of the things that we need, especially on console.
I don't disagree. I mean, I think I don't know what it is. I mean, I can't argue with what you said about them sticking to PC being the right decision. I think I agree with everything you said there. To play devil's advocate, as far as it being more enjoyable to watch, some might say that the parity that comes with playing on console and the potato that is associated with aiming with thumbsticks compared to mouse and keyboard could possibly be more entertaining to watch for some. But no, I agree. I don't even want to make that argument because I agree completely with where you're going there.
Rogue, what do you reckon?
I think partially the way they're trying to do it with the plans going forward for this next year and the year after, growing the scene a bit more and organizing larger and larger events, that in and of itself is a good first step. But yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, most players are on either one console or the other compared to PC, and I see your arguments that there's been a reason why it's been focused on PC up until now, but I think maybe once it grows more and once there is more of an opportunity to get more people interested, having a look at going back to console could also be a viable idea. And of course, then growing also the competition downwards rather than having the competition at the very, very top where you have the best players in the world, also allowing amateur leagues and amateur tournaments.
Yeah.
Yep. So agree with most points there.
I would agree with you fully on that, but I would also say that maybe to attract a bigger crowd, let's say to even like get to the consoles, maybe drop even the price for, let's say, standard edition, drop it to the point where even like for consoles it will be acceptable. Like, because I personally own a PS4 myself, and I sometimes look at the price on Steam and look at the price on PlayStation Store, and like, why would I even bother to pay for the same game on different consoles, where on console it's like so much more expensive? And maybe dropping initially that price for the game, and then encouraging more competition within the consoles. So let's say even for Ubisoft to integrate like a in-game lobby system for the actual competition, like where you can actually track the ladder, like let's say what even Call of Duty has been recently doing with their MLG game battles. So, integrate just about the same system into Rainbow Six, while you have your very own kind of self-developing amateur league.
That could definitely be something. I mean, there's no doubt that I mean, they're not hurting for players on console. That's the only thing I would say to like the idea of dropping the price. They don't, it's kind of a supply and demand thing. If there's any point of justification for raising the price, it would be on console technically. But no, I agree. Like some type of leaderboards would be really cool in the game. Like the more like savvy players will get on Rainbow Six Siege database and look up stats and stuff like that. But to have something that was available to everybody would be really cool.
I feel like integration is something that really is underutilized in Rainbow Six in the main menu. We have this enormous graphic, like this enormous graphic render of the new operators, right? Which, yeah, it's cool, but there's no option like at the bottom where it advertises all the new skins and the news and stuff. There's no, click here to watch the grand final, Penta versus Elevate live right now. We need that. And there's a link to, sign up to a Go for, but people don't really want to click on a link to a browser. Imagine if they could build it into the main menu that you could watch or like perhaps view a bracket inside the game. And like not just a leaderboard of say individual skill or individual stats like R6DB does, but more like here's the world leaderboard and there's a really nice graphic like we see on the Ubisoft and ESL websites, but it's in-game and it's more accessible to all of these players who wouldn't otherwise go and search up the Ubisoft and the ESL website looking for these things.
maybe even beyond having just something that's on live right now, even have the last game that you can click on and just watch a replay of that, or even a condensed version. And that would certainly expose players to it who might not even be aware of the competitive scene as such.
I feel like that could definitely also be utilized for content creation. Like when you said a condensed version, it reminded me of Chunker News Network, who's a fantastic YouTuber who does these supercuts of Pro League episodes, condenses this 1 hour, 40-minute, best of 3 Pro League series into a 5-minute video, which is just snap, snap, snap of all these really nice frags and all these really nice rounds. And you can see it really quickly and feel like you've watched the match. And if they implemented that into the main menu, not only would you advertise the pro scene, but you'd advertise some of your content creators. I mean, yourself, for example, you do these really in-depth videos. For example, recently on reload speed, I really enjoyed that one. You could integrate these kinds of things in there. Only problem is it's kind of like an acknowledgement of third parties, and maybe they don't want to do that as a business move. I don't know.
It wouldn't be the first time that we see something like this. There are competitors, first-person shooters, that do exactly that. You open the game, and then you have sort of these tiles along where you can watch videos made by content creators. So it's not unheard of. I don't think it would be anything unusual. But I also think that Ubisoft are going towards that. You might have heard there was news only this week or end of last week about the new app that has only been released in beta in Canada right now, Sam.
I don't know.
So it's a Ubisoft app that tracks your gameplay stats within Ubisoft games, specifically Rainbow Six as well, and will then make recommendations based on that. And I've had several viewers, days after this app came out, contact me to say, hey, I just gave this app my gameplay stats, and it told me, oh, your favorite operator is Glaz. Why not go and watch this video on Glaz? And it was one of my videos.
Wow.
So
wow.
they're getting towards that, and I'm quite excited about that.
That's so good. That's especially for things like there are so many steep learning curves in Siege. I'm just going to keep bringing it back to your videos because I've been watching a lot of your videos recently, both of you guys. Flanked, you did one recently about how to attack Snowmobile Garage on Chalet using vertical play.
Yeah.
And, vertical play is such a big deal in Siege, particularly in the Pro League. If you watch one match on Border or Chalet or Consulate and you don't see one even, little smidge of vertical play, there's something wrong. Every single Pro League match has that. That's kind of the way the game's meant to be played, and if more people knew about that and the Ubisoft encouraged this kind of cross-community learning, like one community member who's a content creator such as yourself creates this kind of tutorial and explains some of these more advanced techniques, more new players will see that, learn the techniques, and then overall you're getting a more and more skilled player base as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's tough because the video you mentioned there, as far as vertical play on Snowmobile Garage, you make a video like that, and it's really telling to a lot of the player base because you'll hear so many people in that particular video, for example, they say, well, I would do that, but what about roamers? And to me, making that video, anytime you're playing vertically, it's a given. You're going to have to deal with roamers, you're going to have to drone well, and you're going to have to deal with that. Maybe push out roamers as a team or whatever. But to a lot of people, they see that video, and that hasn't clicked yet. And again, kind of going back to getting players to get more competitive. How do we get that casual player to be interested in Pro League or competitive play in general? It's about taking steps, and it's about uncovering the layers of this game. Because at first, I don't know if you guys can remember when you were a noob at this game, you were like, oh, it's a first-person shooter, and I can blow up walls. And then you're like, well, I can also blow up floors. Oh, well, these operators, they have different things. Oh, I can counter this. You start peeling off different layers of this game, and eventually you're 10 feet underground, buried in Rainbow Six Siege. How did I get here? And you can't even see the daylight anymore. But we gotta get the players to kind of dive in a little bit more. And if we do, I think most of them will agree that it's a beautiful game, and that's what's really going to make this game stick around for a long time.
I do actually recollect the very first maybe days after getting Rainbow Six, the very first operator that I bought was Fuse. And holy moly, the amount of like TKs I received the moment I started getting on hostage situations. Even though I would consider myself to be a better fuse when I started than now, because even now I play with some of my friends and we get into actually this happened last week. We get into an argument about they were saying fuse is absolutely useless, and I as a certified fuse main, let me show you how to do this properly. So I rappel up on a second floor bank window, thinking, yeah, I'm just gonna fuse the second room next to hostage. And as I click the detonator, I'm seeing a wild ash shift Wing into the room, and then the next thing I'm seeing is you were removed from match for team killing. Like, God damn it!
Yep.
Cthulhu, if anyone is going to be a fuse main, it's got to be our resident Russian. So,
oh boy.
Actually, one of the most embarrassing moments for me starting the game was when I realized that Thatcher's EMPs could destroy electronic gadgets through walls. Took me way too long to realize that. I was like, oh my god, look, if they put the batteries down or the mute jam, you put it on the other side of the wall, it doesn't even matter. Oh man.
And I mean, unless you take the time and go into custom matches and play around with each and every gadget, there's absolutely no way you should be able to know something like that. There's nothing to tell you exactly how it works unless you either find it out yourself or you watch someone else who's done it.
Mm-hmm. And the situations are the only tutorials we have, and they go through some of the basic operators, but even then, in the situations, the one where you're supposed to play Thatcher, it's having you throw Thatchers at all these static nitro cells, and it doesn't actually tell you that it works through walls. And like, so for example, on the situation where you get to play as Thermite, there's no bandit on the other side trying to bandit trick it. You don't learn about bandit tricking through that, because bandit tricking wasn't an intended feature. It was something that came about because people got creative. And it's such a large part of the game now. This kind of, I feel like, moves off nicely from that. I was having a discussion yesterday, actually, with some of the R6 ANZ community staff, and we're talking about some new kind of leagues that we're working on bringing in for the amateur level players. And there was one particular staff member, Elastic, who's been doing fantastic work, and his feedback was that we really need to foster the high end rather than the entry level end, because his view was that the high end is the way the game is meant to be played, and if more people play that, then it'll foster more people aspiring to get to that level. So, you know, as a tactical shooter, the Pro League competitive play style with highly skilled, coordination, teamwork, and strategy, if that's the way the game's meant to be played, how can the developers accommodate that while still accommodating to 99% of the player base who are more casual level players? And like in terms of updates, like Ella nerfs, etc.
You want to go after that one first, Rogue?
Yeah,
it's a big one to tackle.
I personally think that there is an automatic trickle down. If you make it work for the pros who are at the very top, then it will, for the most part, work for everyone. It needs to work for those who really, really know every inch of the game, and if it does that, then it will also work for most others. There are a few things, I think we discussed it recently, for instance, something like Castle, where a lot of the high-level players, especially pros, will say Castle is fine exactly how he is. If you know exactly how to use him, in which situation, on which map, and how to set up your team to take advantage of his gadget, then he's absolutely fine. But then you get the wider community calling for him to be buffed, and that's not because there's anything wrong with that request. It makes sense because when you don't play with a dedicated team where everyone has their dedicated role and you know exactly how you're setting up your defense, he does become much less useful. But I think having something like that in the game, it's not something that detracts from the experience. If you don't have that kind of dedicated team with everyone in their roles, then you use Castle a bit less. You use other strategies that are a bit more flexible, and that's fine.
This is like the $1 million question for me with Siege right now, and we actually just Rogue and I just sat down and talked about this at great length a couple weeks ago, and it's tough because you can make arguments either way. Like Rogue in that podcast that we did made a very compelling argument for the casual player, and we were actually sitting down with Pingu, and that's the top of the food chain as far as you can get with Pingu up there. So I'll give you an example of why I lean towards the competitive player, and it is the removal of the ACOG from Bandit and Jaeger. So when they announced, when that was sure that they were doing that, or when we were speculating, let's say when we were speculating, you had the more casual player looking at that, and they were thinking about, okay, well, now Bandit and Jaeger won't be able to spawn peek as well. When in reality, if you look at that and how it's played out, it's affected the game in so many more important ways. It's affected the pick rate of Rook and Doc. It's affected the ability of Bandit and Jaeger to hold angles against attackers. It's affected the pick rate of Bandit and Jaeger because it's affected the pick rate of Jaeger. Now an attacker with grenades is a little bit more powerful. The smoke meta is still in there. So that's why if I feel like if you don't cater to that high skill level where they're breaking things down and they're looking at the way that impacts are going to come to the game in the better way, then you end up prioritizing things in the game that are going to make spawn peeking more difficult. And that's not what's going to make this game better.
Yeah, I think that, like, I think me and Dev were talking about this, like, just a few days ago about, like, for example, the UMP. I think in this day and age, like, fly higher rate guns is completely the meta. Like, the UMP, like, nobody picks Castle or Pulse for the UMP. It's such, in my opinion, it's just not compatible with other guns. Sure, you can win a gunfight with it, but, like, you get Ella and you get the UMP. You put them up against each other, close range, Ella's going to win. Long range, UMP might stand a bit more of a chance, but Ella's still probably going to have that gunfight. Like, the UMP just is... I think something personally needs to be done to it, because I just don't feel that it's just not really a good gun in this day and age.
I agree with you. I mean, Rogue's the stats guy, so he can tell us where it actually lands on the list as far as DPS and stuff like that. But you have to take the total account into fact. There's no world in which I say that Pulse needs a buff in any way, shape, or form. So how do you make the UMP better without buffing Pulse? That's my thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. The problem is, as soon as you want to buff, like, as soon as you say this gun is too powerful in comparison to this gun, we need to make this gun more powerful to compensate, but we don't want to make the operator that holds that gun more powerful. So recently I bought an account, and on that account I only have Smoke and Pulse. So when I got bored of playing Smoke, I started playing Pulse. And I was just, I wasn't necessarily always playing him for the typical vertical role that he's known for. I was roaming, I was going for gunfights, I was trying to be a 3-speed, and I kept dying to, Twitches, Hibanas, all these people with incredibly high fire rate guns. And I was looking at these gunfights and these replays, and playing at this elo level, I was getting 2 shots of my gun out, 1 or 2 shots before, like, in a straight up gunfight where I saw them first, before they'd had 9 bullets out or something. And it's just the high fire rate means that at the high level where headshots are everything, it's much easier and more forgiving to have a high fire rate gun like Twitches, where you can just aim at head level and hold down and compensate the recoil a little bit, and anyone who passes through that line of sight in that time will die, because it's a one-hit headshot game. Whereas the UMP with a much slower fire rate, there's a lot more skill involved. For example, if you're holding an angle and holding down the trigger, a 3-speed could very easily run between those bullets at a 650 RPM fire rate. So I don't know. Like, that said, I agree. I don't think the UMP. Well, I don't think that'll treat Pulse well if he gets a buff, because I think Pulse is already too powerful. Not powerful enough, rather. And I'm considering maybe instead it's more of a question of kind of nerfing the fact that speed is so powerful in this game, whether it's speed of your gunfire rate or whether it's your actual speed. And it happens to be that most of the fast 3-speed operators tend to have the fastest high fire rate guns. I'm talking about Ella and Ash and Hibana. These are the ones that is just like this. There's too many strong points in one thing. Maybe they need to, they've nerfed Ella a little bit. I think that they've done nowhere near enough that they need to make Ella a balanced operator. Seriously, I think if you take that down to 30 bullets in the mag, I still think she's going to be too powerful. But I don't know, how can you kind of address that, such a big issue to tackle? And the other side of that is maybe the issue is lesser at a lower elo level. I mean, newer players, or even just players playing at a lower rank level, maybe that's not such a big deal. In Pro League, it's clearly a big deal, the fact that these 3 speeds are meta. I don't know.
You go, Rogue.
Yeah, I think you mentioned sort of the headshots and being able to catch people as they move. That's certainly an aspect. I think it goes even beyond that, because most primary weapons will kill in 2 to 3 shots within sort of the average kill distance, which was recently announced as being below 10 meters, right? So you're usually very, very close. And if you have weapons that will kill in 3 shots at that range, then the one with the faster fire rate is going to win, all other things equal. So unless you make the slower firing guns so powerful that they kill in 1 shot less, they're never going to be the absolute equal, even if you land nothing but body shots. But if you make them powerful enough to kill in 2 shots, then you've overdone it automatically. You've already overdone it. So I think it's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible, to get slower fire rate guns on par with the faster fire rate ones. And I think maybe that isn't such a bad thing, because what I see in the game is that you have the balancing where some operators have very, very good and very useful gadgets, but their weapons are a little bit weaker. And then you have those with better guns, but maybe less useful or less forgiving gadgets. And I think that is a valid way of balancing it, if it can be done consistently. There are, of course, always the exceptions where you have pretty good gadgets and then the guns that are just a bit ridiculous at the moment. But I think in terms of fire rate, or the slow fire rate weapons, there's nothing much you can do to put them on the same level.
Yeah, I would, to be honest, agree with you on that. Like, UMP at the very moment, is actually in a very good place. Like, if you put in, let's say, a compensator with a vertical grip, or even the angle grip actually works. It's pretty much there's no recoil.
Yeah.
Let's admit it. It's pretty much the same story with Capcan's gun, but it's pretty much, it doesn't have any recoil, but it just has a higher fire rate.
At least that's got a good fire rate to it.
The only kind of fix that I would probably suggest is you could technically try to slightly buff up the fire rate. Like, you know how Ubisoft likes to go with their mid-season update, they like to include a bit of lore, how they introduced the shield on Tachanka's turret because he was working with Mira on that. You could technically do something or explain that UMP's got buffed up because it's a custom UMP with like a new spring or something. Because you could, as far as I know, with like gun stuff. But there are ways to balance it, but to balance it out compared to other operators, you would need to do a whole lot more rework at the moment.
You've actually changed my mind a little bit. I feel like I totally agree that Pulse is in the right place right now. He doesn't really need to be touched with. Castle, again, at the low level, everyone says he's useless or whatnot, but again, Castle in the right hands can be a force to be reckoned with. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that the UMP is like just. I don't know, like that's where it should be, but at the same time, I'm not sure that it needs to be touched at the moment, especially because it's not a major issue or anything like let's say Ella's gun. But yeah,
I'm pretty soundly convinced that the main issue is with the weapons and the operators that are too strong, rather than the ones that aren't strong enough, for the most part.
Yeah, and I mean with both Pulse and Castle, basically, if you're picking them right now, you're picking them for their gadget. And you're dealing with their weapon, and I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that because those are both very strong gadgets that you're picking right there. And if you think about, I mean, maybe you might see more people, especially in the lower ranks. Maybe you could get away with running a Pulse shotgun with the pistol buff. You know, I mean, the pistols are really good right now. So you run the Pulse with a shotgun, and you got the pistol. And I mean, is it really that much worse than the UMP? To be completely honest, So
that
that's
pistol
an
is
idea.
pretty amazing these days. Skye knows last night we were playing ranked and I was trying to get my pistol challenges my shotgun challenges much to my teammates' display, so I kept running shotguns on everyone that I was playing. And yeah, no, it's actually good. Shotguns are a lot of fun, but they still haven't found their way into the highest level of like Pro League and such, and that's just because the single hit headshot means that pre-firing a tiny angle with a fast fire rate gun guarantees that if someone's head passes through that angle, they're going to die. Whereas shotgun, you can't hold tight angles. You have to play smarter and closer. And yeah, shotguns are fantastic in the right hands, but it's very difficult to, placement means a lot more, and it's a lot less versatile than these high fire rate guns. This is actually something that we keep coming back to podcast after podcast. I think this dates back to when we had Emzo as a guest on here a long time ago, way back. And we were talking about what needs to be done about 3 speeds. And I mean, it might seem like a leap to you. I'm talking about high fire rate guns. Now I'm talking about 3 speeds. But honestly, they really fall into the same boat to me. High fire rate guns kind of counter the 3-speed issue. 3 speeds move so quickly that the low fire rate guns, you have to trace them a lot faster and you have a lot less shots in that time. So it's a lot more difficult to actually land a head or even a couple of body shots. 3 speeds, the animations, all of their animations work much faster, which means it's much harder to hit them. And they typically have the smallest hitboxes. I'm looking at you, Ash. Maybe it's 3 speeds that need the nerf, just the speed itself. I mean, reducing the speed by 3-4%, I think would be a noticeable difference. The thing that Emzo suggested when we had him on here was making it so you kind of flip around the sound. Currently, 3 armors, 1 speeds, make the most sound and move the slowest, but have more armor. Now, out of sound, speed, and armor, realistically, it's speed and sound are the most valuable out of those 2. And 3 speeds get both of those to their advantage. And the 3 armors only get the armor. So maybe you move it so that 3 speeds make the most noise. And 1 speeds are the most sneaky, but they move slowly.
That's an interesting idea. And I think there's definitely a discrepancy in the benefit you get. Speed at the moment gets you a lot of benefit. It makes you very hard to hit, and it means you can peek out quickly and catch an enemy before they even see you coming. Armor, on the other hand, it doesn't even make that much of a difference. I've calculated it for all of the weapons, for all of the armor types at all distances, and a lot of the time, certainly at the killing range that we're at, under 10 meters normally, 3 armors don't even need an extra shot. If you're landing nothing but body shots, they will go down in the exact same number. Okay, they might get down but not out, whereas a one armor or 3 speed would get killed. But at the end of the day, that's still 3 shots. So I think a lot of the times, apart from when you're at extreme range or when you're using Rook armor to supplement it, 3 armor do not get enough of a benefit to protect them to make up for the lack of speed and the sound they make. So, I mean, an additional way of tackling that could be to make armor more beneficial, but then do you end up in a game where you have these tanky armored guys where it makes too much of a difference? One or the other, and probably what you suggested, looking at the speed that the faster operators move at and taking that down is probably the best approach.
Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, Rogue, but when we were talking before, I want to say it was Prodigio Pete, another fellow YouTuber, makes really good content, but he suggested that maybe they just compress the gap, like a 3 speed is here, a 1 speed is down here, maybe we just bring them this way, you know what I mean, to get them, and I hope you guys can see that on screen if that makes sense, but just bring them closer together so that way there's not that big of a difference between a 1 speed and a 3 speed. That could be another way of trying to tweak it or balance it a little bit more, because again, I agree with you guys, there's no doubt about it, speed gets you kills, speed is beneficial, and you don't really, especially as an attacker, like as a defender, that's one thing. Being a 3 armor on defense as a Rook with an ACOG, that's one thing, but being a 3 speed attacker, life is difficult, and there's really no upside to it.
There's only one of them. that's on a shield, and that's Fuse. And who says I'm going to play Fuse and entry frag? You can't entry frag on a 3 armor unless you're blitz and you're doing something cheesy.
Yeah. Well, then you have the 5-speed Blackbeard. So that's the other. Or no, I'm sorry, not the 5-speed. The
negative 1 speed.
The negative 5 speed.
Blackbeard actually.
Just to sort of touch on that as well, rather than sort of you compressing the speed difference, I think for a tactical game like Rainbow Six, I would like to see everything move just a little bit slower. So bringing them closer together, but I would probably, if I had the choice, I would vote for bring the faster operators down a bit in their speed, make everything a bit more of a tactical shooter that it's meant to be.
Yeah, that would definitely work. I do like. I'm actually one of the, I guess, few people at the very least in ANZ region that actually fully welcomed the trap meta. Like it actually made the whole game ever so slightly slower. The attackers actually need to be more careful, more cautious about all the traps and everything, and certain usage of even like IQ or Thatcher even was brought in to get kind of more info. So the more info gathering, the better, because the rush meta was just, in my opinion, was a bit of a mess.
And it still exists there in ranked. Like,
yeah,
how many of the ranked games did we play last night where we just got completely rushed, Skye?
I don't know. Probably we got these same guys like 3 times in a row, and they would just rush every single time.
Every single time.
Rush meta would be still there while there are still plenty of 3-speed operators. You have Hibana, you have IQ, you have Ash. Even the recruit rushes sometimes probably work, not on higher tier level. Probably.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, it happens.
Shush Dev. But yeah, as long as there are 3-speed operators, and as long as there is that kind of, I guess even the myth about, well, not myth, problem with the hit registration, where you see even like the copious amounts of videos from King George, aka King Salt, about how he hit them in the head, and you see the blood splatter, but the enemy is on like 70 or 60 health. Like, as long as that's still there, rush meta is still going to be viable. As soon as Ubisoft would introduce higher refresh rate for their servers, all the rushes can be shut down fairly quickly. Like, I do remember, I think it was you, Dev, who mentioned while you were on PAX, or even I was talking to some of the competitive players during the APAC LAN, on LAN setup, Ash actually dies.
Yeah, that's the thing we keep coming back to.
Yeah, because there's no ping difference. You can't play for ping, and you have the just pretty much perfect hit registration, and Ash dies. So the moment you fix that, the moment you fix that kind of the hit registration, I feel that will be your ultimate solution, pretty much.
I feel like if the entire game was on LAN, then a lot of these issues would be resolved. But I mean, I'm not going to go and do a ranked queue where I literally stand in a queue at some massive center where they got all these pieces. That's just not realistic. This is an online game we're talking about. And these issues are accentuated more in Rainbow Six Siege than a lot of other games, and it gets a lot of criticism for that. And I think that one way to address, you can't kind of ignore that. You've just got to kind of accept it and then move on. Yes, you can tell them to get better servers, etc., fix their netcode, whatever. I don't know the technical side of it, but then you've got to be realistic and say, okay, what's actually achievable, and what's an appropriate way to address this. And what Rogue was saying before about it's a tactical shooter, bring all the speeds down, kind of make it slower. I like that, and I think that if 3 speeds in particular are slower, there's going to be less hit reg issues, because for example, just say it's refreshing a certain number of times a second, it's reporting your player placement, you'll have moved less far in that distance between the 2 ticks. So in theory, registration is going to be better. It means that the animations, which I think are a bit of an issue in this game, a lot of animations make certain body parts get in the way of the head. For example, arms now count. Arms used to get the equivalent damage as legs, but they changed that to now be chests because there were so many times where, that was a long time ago, where arms would actually block chest shots, and it would seem like someone's taking extra hits when it's actually just that they've got the extra damage resistance because it's hitting their arm and not their chest. The amount of times where someone's hand on their weapon has covered up their head, and of course the bullet magically gets absorbed into their arm and doesn't go through and hit them in the head. Like, all these things stem from issues with animation and speed, and get accentuated by the fact that the servers are this way, and maybe reducing the speed will overall just dial back on these issues.
I was thinking about this a while ago, about like tick rate server and all that. Obviously, I've played a bit of CSGO in my time, and the issues aren't as prevalent there. And I sort of thought to myself, what if it's just the way that Rainbow Six is, that like these things are almost always going to be in the game, just because the way the netcode runs, just because the style of the gameplay, there's always going to be that peeker's advantage online. Like, there's always going to be a peeker's advantage online. If you peek first, you're going to have a couple milliseconds. That's just the way it is. It's because it's an online connection, right? It's not going to be like LAN. But then, yeah, that's just a theory I had. I'm not sure if that's actually the case, but yeah.
So what to do about
it? Sorry?
I was just going to say, what to do about it?
Yeah, I think it's the nature of the game that also works against it there. Because everything is so close-ranged and quite fast-paced, it accentuates and it exaggerates these problems. You'll have that in every game, but in shooters maybe where you have greater distance or more open areas, it's the problem doesn't simply occur because it only occurs once you get very, very close and move pretty quickly. So I think the reason that maybe we see that issue more, or it feels more exaggerated with Rainbow Six compared to other games, isn't necessarily that it's technically any worse, but it is simply the nature of how Rainbow Six plays.
I agree with that completely, Rogue. And I think that when you look at Rainbow, the margins are so small. You think about the situation of holding an angle through a doorway. So you're holding such a tight angle that you're not actually going to see an operator. You're going to see a change in light, and that's when you're going to know to shoot. And what other shooters do you do that? Do you do that in Battlefield? I never have. Maybe there's some really high-speed Battlefield players out there, but I never hold angles like that in Battlefield. I never do it in Call of Duty. I don't play a lot of CSGO, so I can't speak for that. But I think that Rainbow is unique, and when you're talking about margins like that, it kind of takes the problems of playing any first-person shooter online and just kind of blows it up. And I have noticed an improvement since Operation Health with the 60 hertz servers that we have now. I think the game has gotten a lot better on that front. Personally, it used to be egregious sometimes when you would play, and now it's somewhat rare to have something like that.
There's a particularly good YouTube channel called Battle Nonsense. I'm not sure if you know that one. We're doing a content creators episode, may as well plug all my favorite content creators. This guy did a fantastic video comparing several games and their tick rates, and I was watching it as a PUBG player. I enjoy playing a lot of PUBG, and obviously, as anyone who's ever played the game knows, it's like it. I don't know how I can put that into words. It's a bit of a headache when it comes to hit reg and movement and mechanics and input delay as well. And even just looking at like the raw the delay that game had, and I feel like I saw, they're pretty sure he did a bit about Siege, right? Yeah, there you go. 60 hertz netcode analysis, Rainbow Six Siege. That's the one I watched. And he compared the kind of network delay in Siege compared to a couple of other games, and similar to the placement of PUBG within its peers, Siege is actually kind of it's lagging behind a lot of the competitors, and it's not by much. And you could dismiss it as being fairly trivial, but as soon as you add in all the factors that you described, Rogue, the fact that it's closer, which means that, you know, if you're just talking about a screen and how many pixels he's taking up looking on a screen, when you're closer, things move faster relative to your eyesight. So not only is he actually moving faster, but he's perceived as moving faster. The fact that we've got, you know, the slower servers or the servers that aren't as responsive, the fact that it's a one-hit headshot game, you only need one bullet to kill someone, and you've got these guns that are 1,100 rounds per minute. all of these put together just makes it more and more difficult and feel much worse than, say, and it's not any single factor that's actually contributing to this. It's all these put together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned PUBG. The only way PUBG actually manages to run semi decently with the netcode it has is because most of the combat is at longer ranges. I mean, once you get into a building, things change fairly quickly. But most of the combat doesn't happen in that space, and that's the only reason it really works.
Yeah. I don't know. Hopefully we'll see some improvement in that. I mean, it's difficult to address because it's not like there's one single problem that you can say, let's fix that. So, for example, they've said, okay, servers, let's improve those. Let's make them 60 hertz, up from 50. There's also, if you watch the developer video about that, it's actually a bit more complex than simply it's 10 more. 10 gigawatts, it's more. Like, the way that they interpret the information and stuff, I mean, I don't claim to be any particular tech genius, but watch the video. They're pretty good at describing that. And like they've improved that a little bit, but then the speed is still there. Maybe they need to address that, dial that back a bit. I don't know.
In terms of the networking, there's only so far they can go as well, because as Chris mentioned in his Battle Nonsense video, if your frame rate doesn't match the tick rate, so if you're playing on an older computer and your frame rate is below 60 hertz, you're actually not going to get the full advantage of that 60 hertz tick rate. So it's not just a case of, well, they can just get faster and faster servers, because that will then split players apart and give players with older machines or even console players less of an advantage. I mean, on console, everyone's on the same machine, so they just don't get to have any advantage, all of them. But on PC, once you then start having people with exceptional computers, exceptional power, they can run their game at a very high and very stable frame rate, and they'll have an advantage once you increase that server tick rate.
And that's something that's already prevalent in the PC community. Of course, in FPS games, 144 hertz monitors are coveted, especially in competitive play. I think that at one of our LAN events in Sydney, there were 240 hertz monitors at the stage. Like, it's like people notice these differences. I'm unfortunately still stuck on my own 60 hertz 1080p monitor, but you can get so far on limited hardware, but there's a point where the hardware does actually make a difference, and it's unfortunate. And if they accentuate that by making it a part of the game, that the game can go, say, 120 hertz servers, it's going to give an even bigger advantage to 120 plus hertz players.
And let's be honest. I mean, the way that Rainbow is optimized right now, I mean, it takes a pretty serious computer to get 120 frames, to get 140 frames like stable all the time. I mean, you've got to have some serious stuff going on. It's just Rainbow is very, very tough to run at that frame rate. I mean, I consider my computer pretty good, and I go anywhere between 120 and 140 depending on what's going on, what map I'm on.
Like favelas? Remember the good old days of favelas?
Oh my god.
Favelas, Terroristan, I still don't think I get 60 hertz on that.
And that's actually another point. It's not just maybe the point I made about having players on lower powered machines. It's the fact that maybe anyone with a normal computer, let's put it that way, will struggle to get far above 100 hertz, if even that. Because the game is so demanding at the moment. I mean, I suppose you can compromise and go at a lower resolution or scale the game down a bit in quality. But if you want to play and want the game to look fairly good, then yeah, if the servers are faster, you're not even going to be able to take advantage of it. Or at least most players won't.
Something that I thought about a few times is, what if we gave this would be a good money-making thing for Rainbow Six Siege. What if they gave players the ability to host their own servers? So, like, you could pay. I think Battlefield 4 did this. I know you can do it on CS:GO and many other games. What if you could host your own server? You could pick your own tick rate. You'd pay for this server to be hosted. And in game there'd be like a menu where you'd browse servers and stuff. what if you just gave players the ability to do that? That way, players that didn't have a high enough optimized rig to play on 120 Hz, they just don't do it in the 120 Hz servers. And if you think you've got enough, then you can. And I feel that would be like, what if like not all servers are hosted on 120 Hz, just like maybe competitive ones. So you could have, I don't know, like I know it's done in CS:GO, where you can have 128 tick, you can have 60 tick, and all that good stuff. But yeah, rather than just changing all the servers in the world to a certain tick rate, what if you sort of split it up and gave players the ability to host their own by paying like a monthly subscription fee or something?
I think I like the idea. My understanding is that it requires some coding on the back end. It's not as simple as just taking your game and unplugging it from a 60 hertz server, plugging it into a 120 hertz servers, and now everything's good to go. My impression is that you've got to have your netcode set up for that on the back end. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but that's my impression.
Yeah, I'm sure it's complicated. Yeah.
I like the idea though. I agree. And to touch on that, what if you could get really crazy with the game modes that you create on your own server? So Skye's talking about renting your own server. Well, what if on my own server, not only do I get to pick the tip rate like you were mentioning, but I can also make it to where I can pick a defender when I'm attacking. And so I could have a Tachanka on attack, you know what I mean? Or something like that. Or I could, get really creative with the different game modes and stuff like that. I think it would be an awesome idea, Skye. I really do.
CSGO is famous for the fact that it has all these custom servers. Yesterday I was talking to people who were doing these like aim training ones, racking up these kills. It's just like, you have the bots and they're static. For a long time, pro players in particular have been asking for a terrorist hunt mode or a practice mode, but it doesn't include the C4 and bombers, which plague people who are just doing terrorist hunt to warm up. And if Rainbow Six had these custom servers in a way that similar to CSGO, I think it would be really helpful. Even like, for example, you guys, particularly you, Frank, you make these tutorial videos about how to attack this objective, or like how to use vertical play in your attacks, or how to defend this, all that kind of stuff. Imagine if there were custom maps specifically designed to teach new players. You could make a video tutorial, and then you could make a map, in-game map tutorial based on some modding tools. And you could kind of link them together and, teach. I've played only a little bit of CSGO, but I've done one of those maps where it has all the floating arrows that tells you, where the typical smoke spots are, and the stun spots, and these massive throws on the maps and stuff. You could have something really similar for Siege, and that would boost the skill of the community as well.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely be useful and interesting. Technically, how viable is it? I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I'm all about anything that's going to help, get players, more skill and more knowledge when it comes to that. I would love to see more mod tools and stuff like that. I guess the only explanation I can think of for why we haven't seen that is maybe it's just not a top priority for them, and maybe they're afraid of fracturing the player base at all. Even just 6 months ago, the Steam count on this game was like in the 20s and 30,000s at times. And now we're every day getting close to 100,000 every single day concurrent players. So maybe we're getting to a point where we'll start to see stuff like that.
Yeah, and I would love to see like even some of the mod tools, like how with even Call of Duty's like Black Ops 3, I believe later on in development they actually brought in the mod tools where the PC crowd could just go wild with whatever they wanted to do. So maybe even that could have worked out well, but only time will show, I guess. While staying on the kind of custom game modes, let's talk about upcoming Operation Outbreak. We did hear a whole lot of things. We heard the zombies, and there was even the rumor, I believe, that the person who was working on Black Ops 1 Zombies was also kind of hinting at working with Ubisoft.
I hadn't heard that. That's new to me.
I'm not sure. Like, I remember hearing it off one of the videos, but I'm not entirely sure where. but yeah, there was a hint of that. Like the guy on Twitter hinted the location of like a Ubisoft studio in Montreal or something around that. But yeah, if that could be the case, this could mean actually something good coming out of a zombie mode within Rainbow Six, considering Rainbow is more of a tactical, and turning it for like a month of that during that event into a zombie shooter. That would certainly be quite interesting to witness. What do you guys reckon, Rogue? Let's start with you.
Yeah, definitely interested to see that, and I think I'm expecting that it will be PvE heavy. And I think I've seen somewhere that it's a 3-player co-op. I'm not quite sure. I have that in my mind. So I'm looking forward to that, and I think that's also a great way for newer players to get into the game, to learn the mechanics, to learn the movement and the shooting, to practice their aim, and then maybe feel more comfortable. Because I mean, now that the game is over 2 years old, if you're, as a new player, you're coming into competitive matches, even if it's casual, and you're up against people who've been playing for 2 years, who know the maps inside out, they know exactly where you're spawning, where you're coming from, you're going to have a tough time at first, and it takes some dedication sticking with it when almost all that you have is PvP. So adding a new PvE mode, I'm all for it and excited to see it. And I really hope it's as good as everyone's hoping it is.
I've actually kind of done a 180 on this. Initially, whenever I heard it, I mean, I was optimistic, but I didn't expect too much of it. I think, like a lot of people, I was expecting terrorist hunt with the zombies instead of terrorists, and not really, maybe on a different map, not really a big deal, but based upon the information that we've been getting lately, they've been doing the very good kind of viral marketing with the Easter eggs and stuff like that. I think this game mode is going to have more depth than I was originally giving it credit. I think it's going to be a lot more than just terrorist hunt with zombies. I think that the fact that they released the information, they were going to change some pricing. I think that when you look at them taking the standard mode basically from 40 to 60, that's what they originally wanted to do, but they've since released that they're going to keep the standard mode at 40. I think that they have big plans for this, and I think that price change was reflective of the anticipated demand that they're going to have for this new game mode. So I'm expecting big things. I'm excited to see it.
Well, still talking about the game mode before we get onto the whole monetization can of worms. I don't know. Like, I really don't know what to expect because it seems really strange to me. Just the concept of zombies in Rainbow Six, from a lore perspective. Like, Tom Clancy wrote books. Rainbow Six is based on books, for those who don't know. A book, I believe, a single book. I haven't read it. I really should. And it's basically, Tom Clancy was a very patriotic kind of dude. He liked writing books about, secret covert operations that, killed the bad guys. And that's kind of the storyline of Rainbow Six, or at least the basic storyline. There are some terrorists, some bad people, and here are all these amazing operators and what they can do to counter that. And obviously the lore doesn't matter that much in terms of the day-to-day of Rainbow Six. Rainbow Six is, at its heart, a competitive game, a tactical shooter. It's not really about terrorists when it comes down to it. It's about, these specific operators and how they interact on attack and defense, etc., etc. But zombies don't fit into it from a lore perspective. Not that I'm criticizing that. I mean, they can do whatever they want. It's their title. And they don't seem to fit in from a gameplay perspective, from a competitive perspective. Because if the core of the game is this tactical shooter where you've got, you can thermite in this reinforced wall, so you're countering their counter. Oh, but then they counter that with the bandit trick. But you can counter that by a perfectly timed Thatcher grenade. Oh, but you can counter that by using vertical play. It's all these kind of the competitive aspects. I'm struggling to see how they're going to be prevalent in Outbreak. I feel like, how is thermite going to be someone you're playing an Outbreak mission? And you're like, should we bring a thermite? Because the zombies are going to reinforce the wall. Wait, what? The zombies carry around metal reinforcements in their pocket, like all these operators? All right, I don't quite see how that's going to work. And on top of all that, it's not a new game mode, like a new permanent game mode. It's an event. They're calling it an event that'll last for a month. So, I don't know. I really don't know what to expect. But while it may sound like I'm being negative, I have a ton of respect for Ubisoft. Like all of the developers for Rainbow Six. I think they do a fantastic job. Community developers in particular, my interactions with them have been fantastic. And while it may sound like I'm being negative, I'm just really curious because I don't know how this is going to work.
I think you have to look outside the box a little bit there, because I think that if it was me, if I'm the president of Ubisoft and I'm looking at this game mode, I'm thinking, what kind of game mode can I have that's going to attract a new player base?
Mm-hmm.
I already have a solid player base with a game with people who love playing the multiplayer game. So I think that's going to be more of their goal. I don't think that it's necessarily going to be something that is going to kind of run parallel with the multiplayer. I don't think they're going. I don't think they're necessarily going to be restrained by the multiplayer in order to present this zombies mode. So that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. I could be completely wrong. But my thoughts are that it's going to be designed to try to get new blood into the game, and people who might not be interested in a real tactical shooter would be interested in a zombie person versus enemy mode.
If that's the case, I'm definitely for that. If it's just from a long-term competitive player's perspective, Outbreak comes along, it's this fun event, do it with your friends a few times. If it's really fun, keep at it. Maybe try and, never mind, you can't earn packs in-game. Let's pretend I didn't say that. Just have fun, do the cosmetic items if there are any available for not paying money, etc.
Yeah, there will be.
There will be. Okay, there you go. Have some fun with it, and then go back to playing, ranked competitive, etc. And then the other kind of player, the other boat, is the new player who says, "Ooh, there's this cool game that's been going on for ages. I heard that it's got like a pro league or something, and I don't know, there's like a big deal. There's a new event coming up. I heard of this thing called an Invitational. I don't really know what that means, but now they've got zombies, and I really liked Call of Duty zombies back in the day. Maybe I'll give this a shot. Maybe who knows? Maybe you come from Left 4 Dead 2, and you're just like, oh, that sounds cool. Maybe you don't even come from, maybe you're coming from co-op games like Splinter Cell. You're like, oh, I really like Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell because it was a really fun co-op game. Maybe I'll get into Tom Clancy's Siege because, it's Tom Clancy. I liked another Tom Clancy game, and now they've got this cool co-op mode. And bringing new players on board is such an integral thing, I think, to the long-term success of this game.
Yeah, if anything, I'd probably want to see this as a permanent opportunity. I mean, they keep talking about an event, and I don't quite know what that means. Does it mean that you can only play this mode for 1 month and then it gets turned off? Or is it that during that month there'll be special incentives and things you can earn, and then after that it just goes to be something alongside Terrorist Hunt that you can do a bit more in a relaxed atmosphere with your friends? I would probably prefer to see it as a continuing option, because I don't always want to get sweaty. I don't always want to have to get competitive. Sometimes I like playing something cooperative, and I would appreciate having that opportunity going forward.
Yeah, I have to agree. It seems really silly to me that they would spend. It's pretty obvious that the devs are spending quite a good chunk of time here developing this mode, and it's honestly not going to surprise me if at the end of the event they're going to say, guys, we've decided that we're going to add this as an option in game. You got alongside Terrorist Hunt. If you guys want to play it, sure. There won't be any of the incentives. You won't be able to get the alpha packs, but you'll just be able to play, have some fun. Maybe even make it so that you can earn renown from it, like T-Hunt. Because it just seems really silly that they would spend all this time for it to only be there for a month, and then we might never see it again. Again, I guess we'll probably see it again next year, maybe, if that's the route they're going, but who knows.
The thing that worries me a bit was, I think, wasn't there recently in Wildlands, there was an event where you could hunt the predator with your friends, a co-op thing. I think that was turned off after the event, right?
No. Not really.
There?
No. It's still there. Yeah, it's a separate mission. It's just kind of stays there, but it's not just being highlighted anymore.
Okay.
That obviously, like, you still have that waypoint that you can place and just go there, and it just the moment you walk into the area, it just automatically starts up the mission.
Right.
Maybe that's a good indicator of what we've got to come then.
Hopefully.
Could be that. Hopefully, yeah.
Talking about Operation Outbreak, the big elephant in the room, which you guys know what I'm about to say, Outbreak packs and the recent controversy. Now, I don't want to tie you guys out if you guys are kind of sick of talking about this because you've both done individual videos. on this. And by the way, anyone who's watching, I'd highly recommend checking out get_flanked and Rogue-9. There's a hyphen, right?
Yep.
Yes. Check out their videos on this topic, and we'll get a little bit of their thoughts now. So, like, what do you guys see after this whole event? Why don't you just kind of tell our audience a little bit of an overview of what's kind of happened? Who wants to go for it?
Who do you want to go?
Yeah, go on.
You want to go for it?
All right. I'll give the overview here, and then Rogue can give us his breakdown. So basically, with Operation Outbreak, they announced that they were going to do have an Operation Outbreak collection. So it was going to be an alpha pack, only it was going to be an Outbreak pack. And when they originally announced it, they said that the only way that you were going to be able to get those was by purchasing them with R6 credits, or they were going to be giving a limited amount to current players, as well as another amount to players who bought the game after this date, basically after, I guess it would be March, or no, would it be February? Either way. So the basic controversy was started because they're introducing a new loot box / supply drop, whatever you want to call it, in the form of an Outbreak pack, and it was only going to be able to purchase by real world money indirectly. You weren't going to be able to grind for it in the game. You weren't going to be able to spend renown on it. And that caused a lot of people to be upset with it. The other issue that was released in that same statement was that they were raising the price of Standard Edition from $40 to $60, and that they're going to give the people who buy that game 10 of those Operation Outbreak packs, compared to the concurrent player who's been, maybe bought every season pass, has been playing this game all along, is only going to get 4 of them. And that was another aspect of this that made people upset.
Yeah, and as a result, what's happened is that, massive public outcry, etc. People, I don't want to pay for this. Why do new players get more than me? I've played since beta. They have decided that to me, what the most significant thing that's happened, I'm actually really happy with how Ubisoft have handled this. My number one thing that I'm happy that they did, we will be including Standard Edition. Standard Edition will not be removed at the same price point it currently is. So one of the probably to me the worst change that had occurred in this announcement was the fact that Standard Edition had been replaced by Advanced Edition, which is Standard Edition plus 10 Outbreak packs for an extra $20, which to me is just encouraging people to buy Starter Edition, which most people agree is a terrible way to enter the game, especially as a new player, because the amount of time it takes to unlock new operators is a little bit ridiculous. And since operators are kind of the key part of the game, new players need to learn to play, a couple at the very least. So keeping that Standard Edition in the game at the current price point, I think, is an excellent move. Keeping the Advanced Edition in there, sure, if someone wants to buy the game, but they feel like, I want to be a bit more involved, I want to dedicate myself to this game, I'm going to buy not just the Standard Edition, I don't want to be a Standard Edition pleb, I'll get the next edition, I'll get the Advanced Edition and get some cool cosmetics. That's fine, some people are going to want to do that. The other announcement is that they have released, they will be giving away the Ash Elite skin, or a version of the Ash Elite skin, to all players as a kind of, we're sorry, we know you didn't like this, but here you go. And honestly, I don't care that much about cosmetics, but to me, it's I've never spent money on cosmetics. I bought the year 1 and year 2 season passes, but I haven't actually spent real money on cosmetic items in game before. But to me, this is Ubisoft saying, look, we're sorry, we want your respect and your trust, and this is how we're trying to earn it. And that's admirable from my perspective.
The thing is, though, yeah, they did do that. Like, that's actually a fairly good move. But what kind of gave me, I guess, the laughs is the fact that how community reacted to it. Like, there's half of the community said, "Oh yes, that's amazing, that's good," and then all of a sudden, another part of the community just decided to become financial analytics and saying, "Why are they doing this? They are losing so much money on Ash Elite skin. They could have gotten so much more money off it." And all of a sudden, so it sounds and looks as if they're pleased with neither nor kind of outcome of the alpha packs, and they do have a point, but at the same time, it makes them look like an ass. Like let's admit it. Like you're being given an elite skin for what's probably the most popular operator, and for those who haven't even owned an elite skin, that gives them a chance to pretty much get a pass into the cool kids club. And yeah, I reckon
people arguing it's no longer the cool kids club because everyone has it, and I'm just like, at that point, when you're saying that the actual elite skin is no longer special because everyone has it, just stop. The point of this isn't to make you feel special by giving you an elite skin. The point of this is for Ubisoft to say sorry. We're listening to the community.
Exactly, and complaining about a freebie, like, no, a freebie is a freebie. Just enjoy that.
I think the thing to keep in mind there is that when you have such a large and diverse community, it's not the same people complaining about one thing and then another. It's different people, and I actually think I can understand the argument that everyone's making. I personally am not really upset about the fact that there will be cosmetics that you can only purchase with money. It's a bit of a departure from what we've seen so far, because you always had the alpha packs you could earn by playing, and everything else, all of the characters, everything you could always unlock by playing the game if you wanted to. You didn't have to buy the season passes, you didn't have to buy cosmetics, and I think the same still applies, of course. If you don't want to buy these alpha packs, you don't have to. There's no one forcing you. It is, in my opinion, a sneaky sales technique. It is designed to push your buttons psychologically. It involves an amount of anticipation when you're opening a pack that you don't get if you simply go, oh, that's the skin I want, that's the one I'm going to buy, I'm going to put down the exact same amount of money, and then I get it. There is no excitement in that you get out of the pack. So there is an element in there that is designed to get people to buy more of these. And it's not something I'm a huge fan of in general, and that's why I don't buy any cosmetics, and that's it. So I don't like that aspect, but at the same time, I think the approach that we've seen in Rainbow Six in general, the fact that if you want to, you can buy the game at the beginning and then get everything. We've had over 2 years of dedicated service by the developers, improving the game, just literally quarter by quarter or even season by season plus the mid-season, and you get the additional content coming out every season, adding to the game, making it bigger and bigger. That development costs money, and I think it's absolutely fair that gets funded somehow. And with all the options that are there, having that kind of development funded by optional payments that you can buy if you want to but don't have to, that's pretty good. You see a lot of other games that will resort to, oh, well, this is DLC. If you want to play it, you're going to have to buy it, and that's it. We don't have that in Rainbow Six, and we still don't have that. And I think that is definitely a good approach. It allows everyone to participate as much as they want to, either by unlocking it through playing the game or by buying it, and having some things that are exclusive that you have to buy if you really want them. That in and of itself, I think, is not a terrible thing. If that funds the development of the game, then that's a good thing as well.
If I can rant just a little bit here, because this is so like, this is such a sour topic for me. I completely agree with everything Rogue said. I would prefer if there was nothing in this game that you couldn't get by grinding the game. That's the blanket statement right there. But you're going to tell me a guy goes out and pays $40 for this game a year and a half ago, we'll say. He's got 800 hours played. He's played the game every day. He gets a new season every quarter. He's getting ready to get a completely new game mode, all for free. And he's going to complain that some cosmetic items are locked behind a paywall? Like, he didn't get his money's worth in this game? He's going to complain because a new player who's going to pay $20 more for the game than he did is going to get, what, a couple more of these operation packs with cosmetic items in them? I don't understand that at all. The other thing, I honestly feel like there was less of an uproar about Operation Health, which was a complete cancellation of a season. than we have over people who are over some operation packs, which are cosmetic items. Now, Operation Health was a real, like, that's something that really affected the game. We missed out on a complete season. It changed the operator release. We missed out on a map. That's real stuff. That's stuff I care about. But these people who are throwing a fuss about stuff that's locked behind a paywall for a month in the game, I just don't understand it. And I just feel like if you're more likely to complain about that than you were over Operation Health, you're on a different side of the fence than me. That's all I can really say.
You have to consider the timing there. I mean, we've literally just a matter of a couple of months ago come through a more real controversy with loot crates with Battlefront 2.
Absolutely.
And I think that is still very much on people's mind. So that's probably part of the reason.
But you would also have to admit that if you're able to critically think, then you're looking at the Star Wars Battlefront system and the Rainbow system as the complete opposites. I mean, Rainbow is doing it cosmetic only. It has no effect on the progress in the game, and that was not the case with Battlefront. So, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think that was definitely part of it. People heard paywall, people heard, loot crates, whatever, and they jumped on that. But I don't know.
Yeah, and that's my rant. It takes some time to step back and to really think about it. I mean, I made a video on it, spent days going over everything and weighing up the different costs of the new versions, and it takes some time to think about it, to compare and contrast the differences to what we saw with Battlefront, and then hopefully come to the realization that there is a difference and that probably it's nowhere near as bad, and probably not even a terrible thing for the game, even though there are some sales tricks involved.
Yeah.
I really think that it's important to highlight what you're saying, Rogue, like with all of the... You've got to acknowledge that these are shifty sales techniques, and I actually support these Outbreak packs, but it's important to know that, yes, this is psychologically been planned out by very clever people who know how people's brains work in order to get you to pay more, even down to giving you free packs so you get a taste of it, and maybe, like, you said it in your video, I swear, like, everything I'm going to say, you've already said in your video, so go and watch Rogue-9's video, because it's fantastic. And I definitely agree, flanked with what you were saying. If you've played for a year and a half of this game, you've got 800 hours, you spent $40, do a little calculation quickly. How much dollar per hour have you got at this game?
5 cents an hour.
Yeah, like, I think that's more than justified to me.
I'm an old school gamer. I remember buying original Nintendo games for like $35-$40. You played them for like literally like 10 hours, and you would beat the game, and then you put it down. You never played it again. And you're talking like. I guess maybe coming from that perspective, it's hard for me to look at not getting my money's worth out of Rainbow Six Siege. I can't understand that.
The developers are continuing to support this game into year 3 now. They have to pay people who set up the servers, people who maintain the game. Every time they release a new piece of content, they have to play test it. They have to get people to figure out, make sure it's not going to break the entire game. Like, there's so much on the technical side, on a creative side, on the artists. Each season has new music. Like, all these people need to get paid, right? The alternative is just not have new content coming out for the game. I don't want that to happen, because I think this is a fantastic game, and every update makes me want to keep playing it. Yes, there are things that come out that I don't enjoy, like Ella. But anyway, but like, I think continued support for this game is what sets it apart. And if the way that Ubisoft can finance that is by having these optional cosmetic items that I don't feel the need to buy, then I think that's fantastic. That we get this free game and this free content coming out. I used to play Battlefield 4, but I stopped playing because I didn't buy the DLC packs. And one day I looked up, and the only server there to play was an Operation Locker server with it was full, and there were 5 people in the queue, and that was the only one that was available to me because I was locked behind a paywall of not being able to play new maps. And Siege's success relies on the fact that it's very inclusive. and I think that I completely support Ubisoft in continuing that trend.
We would not have the game that we have today without that ongoing development. If anyone ever does get lost on my channel and watches some of the very early videos, the number one comment I always get on those older videos is, wow, has this game changed? And we wouldn't be playing it anymore if it hadn't. If it hadn't evolved into what it is now and continued to change and continue to have additional content, we wouldn't be playing it.
If you want to see how much the game has changed quickly, go in-game and go to tutorials and watch one of the tutorials and just look at how the game looks and plays. It's different. It's so different. It's like, watch the E3 premiere. It's completely different. Everything is different. Anyhow, it's getting incredibly late, particularly for Rogue. He's been very kind, joining us incredibly late this time. Don't even want to think about what time it is for you, man.
2:30 in the morning.
Oh, God, you poor soul. Well, I mean, it's about to be lunchtime for us Australians. But I did want to make sure that the people who did send in AMA questions get a chance to have their minute of fame. So MiniBoss228 on Twitter has a question for you guys. And either one of you is interested, just let us know. What do you think about an IQ buff where she can use her primary weapon with her scanner, like Jackal, to not make her too powerful? It can give her a cooldown like Vigil or Cav, or she can't move while scanning a gadget. Just an idea for an IQ buff.
I mean, initially, what comes to mind for me, the problem with IQ, that would make her stronger. Don't get me wrong, but the problem with IQ, in my opinion, isn't that it's not that. Is the problem with IQ is that you can know that a gadget, an LMI, is above a door, but how do you destroy it? And that wouldn't solve that problem for me. So it would help, but that's not where I would like to see IQ go. I would prefer a complete rework.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. I can see the argument for it, and I mean, since the initial release, we've seen operators come in, like Jackal, for instance, that can have their ability. He just puts down his visor and he's done. He can still use his main gun. There are some disadvantages to using the vision that he has, but it's not as bad as IQ, so I can see the argument there. I personally would like it. I hate switching to the pistol whenever I try to use it to scan. I just feel completely vulnerable and usually end up getting murdered somehow. But absolutely see also the argument that Flanked is making, because finding a trap or a mine or something is the first step, but then if it's placed well, it doesn't even help you. So maybe even an idea where she can, at a limited range, destroy individual gadgets, even through walls. Maybe a limited number per round, maybe on a long cooldown timer to make her not too powerful. That could be something that would make her far more useful in situations like that. And
the other question we had is from at Colin, and then a large string of numbers. He's just wondering if you guys are going to be bringing out any merchandise.
I don't know, man. This is all kind of like, honestly, like the growth of my channel it's been a dream come true, to be honest with you, over the last year. I've never imagined this, so to even like discuss that, for me, it makes me like blush, and it's not really something I've given a lot of thought of, to be completely honest with you. Like, I guess I've gotten several requests for that, so it is something that's kind of in the back of my mind now. And if it's something that people who watch my videos would be happy with, that might be something that I look into down the road. But as of right now, I have other priorities.
Yeah, exactly the same for me. It's something that comes to my mind now and then. But I almost don't even feel as if that's something I should be doing yet.
Well, to you, Colin, keep sending these guys love in the YouTube video chats, in the comments section. Keep saying, look, dude, I love your content, and I want to wear a Get Flanked cap or something. Like, that's what these guys want to hear. That's what everyone who creates content wants to hear. So keep up that, and maybe in the future, the content creators will have time to actually get this stuff lined up, because it's a lot of work to do. But keep that coming. And as you can see, Get Flanked saying that you're blushing, like to hear people say that. Like, keep making these guys feel good, and they'll be good to you as well. And that's where we're gonna wrap up tonight. Thank you very much to everyone who's joined us today. Make sure to check out at @get_flanked and at Rogue-9 on Twitter. Links to all the YouTubes and everything as well.
Let me, if you don't mind, let me just say I really appreciate the work that you guys do, and I really appreciate your region. I think that the APAC region as a whole is extremely important to the success of this game long term, and I really look forward to you guys, what you're going to do at the Invitational, everybody from your region, and seriously, thank you guys so much for the work that you do, and to everybody in the APAC region, I got my eyes on you, and I give you all the support I can.
Thank you. Now I'm gushing. Thank you, dude. That means a lot. Yeah, we get a lot of criticism in APAC for all kinds of reasons, but it's things like that, when people say things like that, that really makes us keep wanting to do what we're doing. So thank you very much.
Giant. APAC is a sleeping giant right now. It's going to wake up, and it's going to 2 years down the road, we might be looking at this like, man, APAC, who's going to challenge APAC?
Well, a huge thanks to Get Flanked and Rogue-9 for joining us today. You guys have been fantastic, despite it being some crazy time zones for you, Rogue. So thank you so much.
No, thanks for inviting us.
Thank you both of you guys. It means a lot. And as you said, pretty crazy time zones.
Yeah, we've got Six Invitational coming up in the next few weeks. We'll be covering more content here on this channel. And yeah, if you missed this one on Twitch, we'll be uploading it to YouTube as well, at R6 ANZ, at R6_ANZ on Twitter, and etc. So thank you very much for joining us, and see you guys next time.
See you guys.